Welcome, Wargamers, to the cutthroat deals of the mortal realms, because today we are taking a story straight out of the newest Fyreslayers battle tome as we explore one of the sub-factions of them, the Hermdar. Just before I get into that, I do want to throw a special shout out and thank you to my patrons over on Patreon who make this all possible by supporting me, my wife, our cat, this whole channel, and all of it. If you'd like to see some hobby progress updates and that kind of stuff, I'll be using the platform a lot more exclusively for that, as well as polls and opinions and that kind of thing. Go ahead, head over there and support me. Even just throwing a buck in the pot kind of helps. And with that out of the way, today's story is called The Slayers of Tyrants. There is rough agreement amongst most lodges of the value of any given type of mercenary venture, but some Fyreslayers grumble that the Hermdar are undercutters. This reputation is cemented when it becomes widely known among the Zargrim that the Hermdar accepted a shockingly low payment to both destroy the prison fortress of Black Iron and embark upon the grueling Cracked Plain campaign to end the gut tyranny of Throgbrute. And they did not even demand gold up front. The Hermdar do not mind that the human tribes who dwell near the adamantine chains have begun to call them the Slayer of Tyrants, for the Dwarden deem it to be a moniker that is good for business. Now, for those of you who are new to the game, or the Fyreslayers specifically, they are a very mercenary-minded faction. I'll actually try to leave a link to the playlist talking about the Fyreslayers specifically, but essentially these are dwarves who all worship and revere Grimnir, one of the dwarven gods, and Grimnir's gone away. He's shattered into a bajillion pieces and turned into Urgold, a resource that they are always working to accrue. Again, that whole story is explained in detail in my Fyreslayer lore series. But one thing I feel was touched on more when the Fyreslayers launched than it is now is the idea that they are mercenary by nature. And with a capital M mercenary, meaning they work for everybody. They'll work for Chaos if the money is good. They'll work for Destruction factions. They could be hired by ogres who are just trying to get some food. They can be hired by vampires. They don't really care, as long as the gold keeps flowing. Some sub-factions within the Fyreslayers definitely care more about honor than others. Again, it's a spectrum of like, what is the job of a Fyreslayer? Well, it's to accrue Urgold to release Grimnir, but the way in which it is done is where you really start to see the morality of the various sub-factions within the Fyreslayers battle tome. But when your entire, warrior culture and your species, so to speak, not quite species, they're all Dwarden, but when the Fyreslayers as a whole are all about the accrual of wealth or gold or Urgold, whatever, someone stands out like a sore thumb when that doesn't seem to be the only thing that they are after. This little story sheds light on the idea that all of the various Fyreslayer holds have sort of like not a monopoly, but a price agreement, right? This is generally speaking to achieve our, united goal of getting Grimnir back. This is how much we should charge for general services, mercenary work, leading expeditions, following Dawnbringer crusades, all of those kinds of things. Which is interesting because for the longest time, there wasn't a ton of information that these various magma holds would communicate with one another. And here we have it pretty well solidified. No, they do have a network. They have a mercenary network, and that's a really cool thing. I don't know how they determined the prices on all this stuff, kind of like with the Carriage and Overlords. Like, how do you price some of these things? It's so abstract, but they do. And what I also find interesting is that it's the priesthood, the Zargrim, who are the ones who verify that everyone is accruing as much gold as they should be rather than the actual rune fathers. So there's an interesting intertwine of economics and religion. And obviously the story centers around the sub-faction known as the Hermdar, a very specific magma hold of Fyreslayers, who we'll talk about in just a minute, but really the problem that everybody has with them, and it's not really like a necessarily a go-to-war level problem, but it's this idea of price gouging. If all the other lodges agree that some mercenary work should cost, about 10,000 gold, the Hermdar are coming in with a strong vote at 2,000. I'm not sure if it's quite that dramatic, but that's kind of the idea is you're just undercutting all of the competition of the various magma holds, thereby lowering the value of it overall. Why would they pay 10 when they could pay 2 somewhere else? And so the other magma holds are like, this stinks. Like, this could have ramifications for the rest of us trying to get mercenary work. But the Hermdar draw a line in the sand because they are truly different kinds of Dwarden, and we're going to talk about why now. If we were to put together a sort of spectrum, right, on one end is pure heartless mercenary work. They do not care who they work for. Totally happy to work for Chaos guys. My opinion is that Greyfeared would be at the end of that spectrum. They're sort of like the dark horses in this whole thing. On the, we'll say, noble side, doing things for heroism and other, great qualities, duty, country, oaths, that kind of stuff, is the Hermdar. It's not that they are like any less Fyreslayers. They revere Grimnir. They have a rune father whose name is, Kalmar Grimnir, because they always take the surname Grimnir when they become the rune father, which I think is a super cool thing. And what makes them stand apart is that they are very, very, we'll say, discerning when it comes to who they work for. To them, the mission is not about retrieving and unleashing Grimnir back into the realms. Because if they do that, but they do it by dubious and unhonorable dishonorable, I should say, means, then when Grimnir comes back, he won't be happy with them. Like, it's not enough to just free him. You have to do it like Grimnir wants you to do it, in their opinion. And so they are a sub-faction that's very focused on honor. Their entry actually says the Hermdar are sworn enemies of oppression who value their honor above their desire for riches. Now, don't misunderstand, they're not entirely philanthropic. They want to get paid. They make tight bargains, and they keep their word, just like all Fyreslayers. But the difference is, they are much more willing to take sort of like IOUs. They have these sealed pacts of honor with multiple storm hosts, as well as cities of Sigmar. The idea being, you pay me now, and I'll call on this debt later. You have an oath. And while it doesn't actually get me Urgold in the current moment, I understand that it moves us collectively as Fyreslayers towards the ultimate goal of getting Grimnir back in a way that he would want. There's no shortage of battle or anything like that. There's going to be a time where those pacts are called in. And so what they present to the rest of the Fyreslayers is an interesting intersection of values and mission, right? They're all on the same mission, but the values with which they achieve that mission can vary greatly. And this is actually why I think the Fyreslayer Battle Tome that just came out does a wonderful job of expressing both a zealous, incredibly intense faction. I think intense is my favorite word for them. But also mixed in with that is a huge wide range of motivations. Everything from, super jealous rune sons vying for potential of becoming the rune father. Holds are falling left and right. New ones are being forged. Some are philanthropic and just want to help the forces of order. Others are still see themselves like they did in the Age of Chaos, all alone, right? We are an island. And this kind of working togetherness with Hermdar, at least that's their attitude, is we're all in this together, really hits all levels. Because not only are they willing to help the common person that comes around them, they're willing to go out and stomp tyrants and all these kinds of things. But also, they're the most welcoming of Grugni. This is the other Duarden god, the god of engineering and smithing and that kind of stuff. He's made a return to the mortal realms, and they are just open arms. Like, yeah, you're inextricably linked to our culture, right? I mean, they don't worship him in the same way they do Grimnir, but he's a part of their cultural past. He's also made these pacts of honor with various dispossessed clans, and so you have the cities of Sigmar kind of elements. I'm sure if any of the cities sent out Dawnbringer crusades meant to take back ancient holds of the Duarden, this is the kind of thing that I think Hermdar would be like, yes, we're into this. Right, retrieving the honor of a fallen Duarden hold is a bargain at any price, and they'll just go to work. And also, one of the last sentences here makes them stand out a lot, and that is Kalmar, meaning the Rune Father. His reputation as an ambitious and forward-thinking leader is exemplified by the fact that he has named the Rune daughter, Brujah Brightaxe, as his heir, choosing her for her savvy and diplomatic skills above a bevy of his elder and more gloried sons. Which is really cool. I'd love to have a Rune Daughter model, absolutely. Even if it's just a little clan pack that comes with one that could be sitting or standing, so it could be riding the Magmadroth or not. I would be really cool for that. I mean, that's a $30 upgrade kit I'd buy. Who doesn't have 10 Magmadroths in their back closet from picking up, a couple Fyreslayer starter boxes? But this to me is another example, or just one more example, of why Hermdar is one of the best magma holds when it comes to the Fyreslayers in the mortal realms, is because it's not just that they're progressive and forward thinking, it's they have this understanding of the bigger picture. It's not just about getting Grimnir back, it's how we do it. How do we do it? We show everyone else in the mortal realms we, the Fyreslayers, are the very best. Sometimes that means going and knocking down a tyrant for a little less money than you would normally charge, because you get the reputation, right? Tell everyone, Kalmar Grimnir took down this tyrant. Like, that's epic. And it just increases their reputation and status amongst all the other factions of Order. That makes Grimnir proud, because it elevates the name of the Duarden. But also, on a very practical level, the heat has done nothing but go up since the start of the Age of Sigmar, right? Like, they were all huddled, locked down, largely isolationist during the Age of Chaos, and then, now since the game has launched and we're in our third series now, so we have the Realmgate Wars, the Soul Wars, now we're in the Age of the Beast, or Era of the Beast, whatever they want to call it. Things are changing. Like, people to work with and have trade and commerce with, and the nature of expansion is exploding. And in an option of adapt or die, these guys are choosing to adapt. They are not islands. No one Magmahold has to be all alone. You can work with others, garner a reputation as the truest, fieriest warriors, sell your services. Sometimes you need to balance reputation with coin. And so when I look at Hermdar, it's not about progressiveness in the typical sense, but this idea of like, if you choose a leader based on their ability to be a respectable diplomat who values honor and the mission of getting Grimnir back, that will eventually look radically different to the other Magmaholds. And I think that's rad. So let's kind of wrap this up by talking about why is this cool. Obviously, this story is very self-contained to the Hermdar. Really, it is in their battle tome to show some internal friction. All the other Magmaholds are like, what the heck are these guys doing? They're ruining everything for us. And the Hermdar are over here being like, we're being the best, right? We are so on top of the mission of getting Grimnir and doing it in a way that would make him proud that we're making our name for ourselves doing it. Like, that just seems like absolute success. But conversely, I also understand the opposition side of it of, well, your morals and your ethics are interrupting the rate at which we can do our actual mission, which is get Grimnir back. And just like any human institution that exists here in the real world, different motivations with the same goal will always cause friction. Now, one thing that stood out about this story, if you haven't watched my Path to Glory review of this book, where I went through the actual Path to Glory section and explained how they make their campaigns exceptionally unique, one of the things I mentioned is that the in-play mechanics are you, as a Magmahold leader, whether it's Runefather, Runedaughter, or whatever, making decisions that affect either your reputation or your gold. Sometimes you have to make the choice of whether or not you're going to make a boatload of money, KO joke not intended, or garner incredible reputation. And literally, like, the mechanics of this story play out in the Path to Glory section, and that's why I wanted to highlight it. Is like, it is the perfect confluence of rules and lore of just sometimes you have to make the hard choices between one or the other. And what we're saying is most of the Magmaholds would lean towards the money, but the Hermdar are like, no, this is a new world. We are so entrenched with one another with the Grand Alliance of Order and Sigmar cities and now the Dawnbringer Crusades. Like, we're so stuck together at this point. The smart thing is to garner reputation, because at some point, some of these cities will get planted and fortified, and the Era of the Beast will end, and then the next era will start. And maybe they won't need your mercenary forces now that everything's fortified up again. But you know who they always need? A friend. A friend who's willing to walk out there and beat the crap out of an ogre tyrant just because they were asked to. So it's like playing the long game, in my opinion, right? They're kind of betting on the forces of Order succeeding. In this sense, they're not trying to act isolated and closed off like that. No. We're going to dive in head first, make this happen, and along the way, we're going to make sure that our goals come true as well. Like I said, they're always still charging the money. They're just doing it a lot less, and it's less about the money because they're not demanding upfront payment. But I think all of these things go into a great discussion about motivations for factions, why your army is doing what it's doing. What kind of friction does that create internally within its own battle tome? And for that reason alone, I love these kinds of stories. So let me know your thoughts about Hermdar, not from a gameplay perspective. I think they were the hotness in the last edition, not so much now. I'd love to see it. Who do you side with? Are you on the Greyfjord side, or are you on the Hermdar side? For me, personally, I lean towards Greyfeared. I'm sorry. I really like the idea of Fyreslayers being hired by Chaos factions. I would choose money, money, money all the time in this Path to Glory section, and will. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will chat with you there. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.